maybe you can tell us a little bit about what's going on with AI, generative AI in the music production world, and how does it differ from what we've seen before in the music space?
And generative AI generally, I think all of us think of systems where you provide some simple textual description, right? And the system is generating some form of content for you. And so the equivalent in music space would be I'm providing a simple description of a sound, right? And then the system generates that kind of sound or soundscape for me. Or similarly, I provide description of a kind of piece of music I want to generate, and the system creates this kind of track for me. And in fact, I mean, for example, for those who have been following, so it is now the first week of August as we're recording this piece, right? And just this week, for example, Meta just released another package called AudioCraft. Actually, it's open source.
And then the model is trying to, in essence, like forecast each of those, like across that full frequency space, where that data point's going to be 1 or 2 or 10 or n samples out. And that unstructured training process, akin to what we do in text to predict future sequences of text, is what's going to ultimately kind of get the model to learn what the music is doing.
So it's not like an autoregressive model, right, where you kind of working yourself forward through time. It's creating this whole 5-second music block all at once. We can build more audio analysis into the pipeline, right, and having a lot more fine-grained annotation for individual segments, events in that more fine-grained representation of what's happening musically, right? And then the system can learn these correlations between text, or maybe even text that's generated from other annotation I have on the musical structure.
I mean, there's a lot of, I mean, this has been a bit of a holy grail within the computer music arena for decades. I remember back in the mid-90s, folks were trying all kinds of things to be able to isolate tracks. But nowadays, composers, even not even nowadays, in the last 30, 40 years, a lot of times musicians, they just play. Like, are we just at the early stages of maybe a startup or two got a little bit in more sophisticated AI-powered features in place? Or are we, where are we on that curve, and what kinds of stuff are you seeing?
I now have this new tool without having to be too much concerned with integrating across different software pieces. And they're specific to this class of sound, so that I have still a lot of degrees of freedom, but as a user, I'm no longer overwhelmed. I have my ideas, I have a certain vision, but really, right, how do I go from my melody to the different repeats of that melody over the course of the track, right? Because I will have variations, and they may be genre dependent, and also genre dependent, maybe there's an interplay between different other tracks. What is meaningful? What is the meaningful sound palette I want to create? And so there's all this very subtle and nuanced musical knowledge that goes into, right, this production process.
Like, I have a smart guitar that I can use for compositional reasons, and maybe even more, but I can access a lot of this AI-powered features, and I can go back and forth from leveraging that deeper compositional understanding of music with my maybe limitations or realities as a player in the physical world. And then maybe 4 months ago, I started taking actual guitar lessons. If you understand something as being important, then you're more likely to practice it and try it and get better at it in an efficient way. Or whether you don't have them and you're just trying to not learn everything wrong that has to be undone by a proper teacher, which is the piece that that I went through.